The rain fell in thin, relentless sheets over Seattle that afternoon, the kind of drizzle that never quite stops but never quite soaks you through either. It clung to everything. The glass towers of downtown, the black umbrellas of executives hurrying across crosswalks, the dull gray uniform of the man who pushed a cleaning cart through the gleaming lobby of Skylink Technologies. Jake Callahan was 45 years old, broad-shouldered, but stooped from years of bending to mop floors and empty trash bins. His hair, once dark and thick, had gone mostly gray at the temples, and the lines around his eyes spoke of too many nights spent awake. No one at Skylink knew his last name unless they checked the payroll. To them, he was simply the janitor. He arrived before dawn, vanished before most people finished their first coffee, and left no trace except clean floors and quiet hallways. That was exactly how he wanted it. On this particular Thursday, the building buzzed with unusual energy. Skylink was hosting its annual Green Tech Week showcase in the main atrium. Banners hung from the 36th floor ceiling proclaiming a carbon-neutral future. Electric vehicle prototypes gleamed under spotlights. Reporters from TechCrunch and Wired milled about with notepads and cameras. Executives in tailored suits shook hands and smiled for photos. And at the center of it all stood Victoria Monroe, the new CEO. 37, sharp-featured and dressed in a crisp white pantsuit that seemed designed to reflect light rather than absorb it, Victoria commanded attention without effort. She had taken the helm 6 months earlier after a boardroom coup that had made headlines in the business pages. Her speech was flawless, bold promises about sustainable energy net zero emissions by 2035 and partnerships with governments and NGOs. The room applauded. Cameras flashed. Champagne flutes clinked. Jake watched none of it. He was in the service corridor behind the atrium wiping fingerprints from a glass door that led to the executive elevators. He had heard the applause through the walls, felt the vibration of it in his chest, but it meant nothing to him. Applause had never paid for Ella's braces or kept the lights on when the bills came due. When the event ended, the crowd spilled out toward the underground parking garage. Jake followed at a distance, pushing his cart ahead of him like a shield. He had parked in the far corner where the fluorescent lights barely reached and the concrete smelled faintly of oil and damp. His car waited there, a 1967 Ford Mustang fastback, once cherry red, now faded to a dull rust brown under layers of dust and Seattle rain. The passenger door was dented from a fender bender years ago. One taillight hung crooked, the paint peeled in long strips along the hood. He didn't mind. The car still ran. That was enough. Victoria reached her reserved spot, first a gleaming white Tesla Model S Plaid flanked by 2 security SUVs. Her team fanned out around her, phones already in hand, scheduling the next meeting. She was about to slide into the driver's seat when her gaze drifted toward the corner. She froze. Then she laughed. It wasn't a quiet laugh. It was bright, sharp, and carried across the concrete like a blade. "Who owns that piece of junk?" she called loud enough for the entire group to hear. Heads turned. Executives paused mid-conversation. Reporters lowered their phones to look. Jake was 10 feet away, loading his cart into the back of the Mustang. He felt the eyes on him before he heard the question. Slowly he straightened. Victoria tilted her head sunglasses perched on top of her head, even though the garage was dim. That thing she said, gesturing toward the Mustang. "Is that yours?" Jake met her gaze. He nodded once. "Still runs?" she asked, one eyebrow arched. A ripple of laughter spread through the small crowd. One of the VPs, a man named Harlan with a Rolex and a permanent smirk, chimed in. "That belongs in a museum or a scrapyard." More laughter. Someone muttered, "Maybe we should start a GoFundMe for the janitor's ride." Jake's jaw tightened. His hands curled into fists at his sides, but he said nothing. He simply turned back to the car, opened the passenger door, and helped his daughter inside. Ella Callahan was 10 years old, small for her age, with her mother's dark curls and wide, curious eyes. She had been waiting in the front seat leg, swinging a sketchbook open on her lap. She looked up as her father slid behind the wheel. "Dad," she whispered. "Why are they laughing?" Jake swallowed. The sound of it was loud in his own ears. "They're just having a bad day, sweetheart." Ella frowned. She glanced out the window at the cluster of well-dressed people still chuckling. Because of our car, Jake started the engine. He turned the key. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the Mustang came alive. Not with the throaty rumble most people expected from a classic V8. not with smoke or vibration or the clatter of old parts. The sound that emerged was smooth, almost liquid quiet enough to be mistaken for silence at first, then deep and resonant, like distant thunder, heard through water. No exhaust puffed from the tailpipe. No heat shimmered off the hood. The entire car seemed to breathe rather than burn. The laughter died instantly. Every head in the garage turned. Phones were raised again, this time not for selfies, but for video. Victoria's smile vanished. She took one step forward, then stopped. Jake didn't look at them. He put the car in gear, eased out of the spot, and drove past the line of luxury vehicles without a glance. Ella waved shyly at the stunned faces as they passed. The Mustang slipped out of the garage and into the rain. Behind them, the silence lingered longer than anyone expected. Victoria Monroe stood alone in the middle of the parking level, staring at the empty space where the old car had been. The echo of that impossible engine note still hung in the air, faint but unmistakable. She didn't move for a long time. Victoria Monroe did not sleep that night. She sat alone in her penthouse on the 38th floor of a glass tower overlooking Elliott Bay, the city lights smearing into long streaks across the rain-streaked windows. The champagne from the event still sat untouched on the marble counter. Her phone lay face down beside it, notifications silenced. Every few minutes she replayed the sound in her mind, that impossible liquid hum of the Mustang's engine. It hadn't roared, it hadn't coughed or rattled, it had simply existed. Smooth, alive, wrong. By 5:47 a.m., she was already in her office on the top floor of Skylink's headquarters. No makeup, no heels, just black leggings, a hoodie, and the kind of focus she usually reserved for hostile takeovers. The security guard on the night shift had raised an eyebrow when she walked past without a word, but he knew better than to ask. She logged into the executive portal and typed 2 words into the search bar: Jake Callahan. The results loaded slowly, as if the system itself was reluctant to reveal them. MIT Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering 1998, summa cum laude. Stanford, Ph.D. in Propulsion Science and Engineering 2003. Dissertation Atmospheric Energy, Harvesting for Closed-Loop Propulsion Systems, NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Senior Propulsion Engineer 2004 to 2016. Co-lead Aurora Project. Classified Prototype. Self-sustaining energy cycle. Zero emissions, zero fuel dependency. Filed under high risk, high reward in internal memos. Then the timeline fractured. 2009, wife Dr. Sarah Callahan diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. 2010, Jake takes indefinite leave to care for her. 2011, Sarah dies at home, age 39. 6 months later, Jake resigns from NASA. No press release, no farewell, just gone. Victoria leaned back in her chair. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She opened a restricted archive folder labeled Aurora Legacy, terminated. The project summary was Clinical Aurora X demonstrated theoretical viability of magneto-atmospheric induction for continuous propulsion. Prototype achieved 98.7% energy recapture efficiency in lab conditions. Projected real-world application: unlimited range vehicles, emergency power grids, disaster relief transport. Projected cost to scale $2.1 billion over 10 years. Recommendation shelve indefinitely. No immediate ROI. No immediate ROI. She closed her eyes. She had read similar memos before. They were the language of boardrooms, not laboratories. She had signed off on 3 of them herself in the last year. She pulled up the security feed next. The timestamp read 11:42 p.m. 3 nights earlier. Basement-level parking garage camera 17. Jake appeared on frame, still in his gray uniform, pushing the same cart he had used that afternoon. He stopped beside the Mustang, glanced once at the camera, almost as if he knew it was there, then opened the hood. He worked methodically. No flashlight, just the dim emergency lighting and the blue glow from an old tablet. He attached a small black module the size of a hardcover book to the engine block. Wires, thin, almost invisible, ran from the module to points along the firewall. He typed something. A faint green pulse lit the underside of the hood. Then he closed it. He got in. Turned the key. The same sound filled the speakers of Victoria's office, that smooth-breathing hum. No exhaust. No vibration. The car idled for exactly 17 seconds before he shut it off, removed the module, wrapped it in a cloth, and carried it away in a battered canvas bag. Victoria paused the footage. She zoomed in on the module. Even in grainy black and white, she could see the faint engraving on the side. For Sarah. She exhaled slowly. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of documents. Old emails from NASA colleagues. A single archived interview with Sarah Callahan from 2008 given to a small engineering journal. I don't care if the world calls Jake a genius. I just want the world to give him time. Time to finish what he started. Time for people to live longer because of it. That's all love really is, isn't it? Giving someone the time they need. Victoria read it twice. By noon, she had made a decision. She took the service elevator to the maintenance level. The corridors were narrow, lit by flickering fluorescents, smelling faintly of bleach and motor oil. She found Jake in the utility room at the end of the hall, sorting through boxes of light bulbs. He didn't look surprised to see her. "You read the files," he said. "You read the files." It wasn't a question. "I did." He set a box down. "Then you know why I'm here. You could be anywhere, teaching, consulting, running your own lab. You could be rich." Jake gave a small, tired smile. Rich didn't keep Sarah alive. Victoria stepped closer. Aurora X. "It's real. You finished it. I finished a prototype. For one car, for emergencies, for people who can't wait for board approval." She studied him. "Why hide it here? Of all places, because here no one looks twice at the man who cleans the floors, and because I needed somewhere quiet to think. Somewhere Ella could grow up without cameras and headlines and people asking her if her dad was ever going to be famous again." Victoria looked at the floor. "I mocked your car yesterday, in front of everyone." "You did. I'm sorry." Jake met her eyes. "Apologies don't change yesterday. But they can change tomorrow." She swallowed. "If I asked to see it, really see it, what would you say?" He considered her for a long moment. "I'd say come back tonight. 11, basement level. No cameras, no recordings, just you." Victoria nodded once. As she turned to leave, Jake spoke again, quieter. "One more thing." She paused in the doorway. "Sarah used to say love isn't measured by how loud it is. It's measured by how long it lasts when no one's watching." Victoria didn't answer. She didn't need to. The door closed behind her with a soft click. The rain had not let up for 3 days. Seattle wore its gray shroud like a second skin, the kind of weather that made people forget what sunlight felt like. Victoria spent those 3 days in a quiet war with herself. She reread the Aurora files until the words blurred. She stared at the frozen frame of Jake in the basement, the green pulse under the hood like a heartbeat. She thought about Sarah Callahan's interview about time given freely, about love that lasted when no one was watching. She also thought about the little girl in the passenger seat of that old Mustang, the way she had waved shyly as they drove past the stunned executives. On the 4th morning, Victoria sent a single message to Jake's internal work number 11 tonight. Basement level. No cameras, no recordings, just to see. He didn't reply until 6:42 p.m. Okay, she arrived at 10:55 alone, no security detail, no assistant trailing behind with a tablet. She wore jeans and a dark coat, hair pulled back in a simple knot. The service elevator hummed as it descended. When the doors opened, Jake was already there, leaning against the wall beside the Mustang. A single work lamp, clipped to the hood, cast harsh shadows across his face. He didn't greet her with words. He simply nodded toward the open hood. Victoria stepped closer. The engine bay looked ordinary at first, old hoses, faded wiring, the familiar smell of oil and metal. Then she saw it, a matte black, rectangular module no larger than a thick, hardcover book bolted cleanly to the firewall. Thin silver conduits ran from it like veins disappearing into the block. No visible power source. No fuel line. "This is it," she asked. "This is the heart," Jake said. "The rest is just plumbing." He reached inside, attached 2 small leads to a tablet propped on the fender. The screen flickered to life. Simple graphs, waveforms, numbers ticking upward. "Stand back," he said. Victoria took 2 steps. Jake typed a command. A soft chime sounded from the tablet. Then the module began to glow faint at first, a pale blue that spread along the conduits like liquid light. The glow pulsed once, twice, then steadied. The entire engine compartment lit up without a single spark or hum of electricity. The Mustang's lights came on. The dashboard glowed. The radio crackled faintly, then played the opening notes of an old jazz standard without being plugged in. Victoria's breath caught. Jake closed the hood gently, almost reverently. The car idled, not loud, not rough, just present. The same breathing hum from the garage 4 days earlier. How she whispered. Atmospheric induction, Jake said. It pulls ambient energy from the Earth's magnetic field, recycles it through a closed loop. No loss, no waste, no fuel. The harder it works, the more efficient it gets. Like breathing. Victoria stared at the hood as if it might speak. This could power hospitals, ambulances, entire villages in places where the grid fails. Why hasn't anyone? Because no one wants something they can't meter, Jake interrupted. No refills, no upgrades every 2 years, no planned obsolescence. The board would rather sell batteries that die in 5 years than give away something that lasts 50. He turned off the module. The glow faded. The car went silent. Victoria looked at him. Sarah knew this would work. She believed it before I did, Jake said. She was the one who saw the math as poetry. When the cancer came, she made me promise finish it. Not for money, not for fame, for time, for the people who run out of it too soon. He opened the passenger door and pulled out a small metal box from under the seat. Inside was a folded piece of paper, yellowed edges worn. Sarah's handwriting. Jake unfolded it carefully. To my love, he read aloud. If you're reading this, I'm gone. But I'm not really gone. I'm in the equations you're still solving. I'm in the quiet moments when you doubt yourself, and I'm in Ella. Don't let them take that from you. Don't let them turn your gift into a product. Give it away when the time is right. Time is the only thing that matters. He refolded the note and placed it back in the box. Victoria's throat tightened. You've kept that promise for 10 years. I kept it for 11, Jake corrected. She died in 2011. I resigned in 2011. I started here in 2012. The janitor job was just camouflage. The real work happens after hours. Silence settled between them. Then footsteps, small quick ones, echoed from the stairwell. Ella appeared at the bottom of the step sketchbook under one arm, raindrops still clinging to her curls. Dad, she called. Then she saw Victoria. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You're the lady from the parking lot. Victoria knelt to Ella's level. I am. Ella studied her for a long moment. You laughed at our car. I did, Victoria admitted. I was wrong. Ella tilted her head. You know it's magic now, right? Victoria glanced at Jake, then back at the girl. I'm starting to... Ella opened her sketchbook and turned to a fresh page. She had drawn the Mustang again green this time, with soft glowing lines around it like an aura. Above the car, in careful block letters, the car that runs on love below, it a smaller drawing, a woman with long hair, smiling, holding hands with a little girl and a man in gray. That's Mom Ella, said pointing. She told Dad the car would run on love. Because love doesn't run out, it just keeps going. Victoria's eyes stung. Ella looked up at her. Are you going to take it away? Victoria shook her head slowly. No, I promise. Ella considered that. Then she tore the page out carefully and handed it to Victoria. Keep it, she said, so you don't forget. Victoria took the drawing with both hands, as if it were made of glass. Jake watched them both. Something softened in his expression, the first crack in the wall he had built over a decade. Ella turned to her father. Dad, can she stay for hot chocolate? It's raining. Jake looked at Victoria. She looked back at him. He gave the smallest nod. Victoria stood. I'd like that, she said quietly. Ella took her hand, small fingers wrapping around Victoria's without hesitation, and led her toward the stairwell. Behind them, Jake closed the hood of the Mustang one last time. The rain kept falling outside, but inside the basement something warmer had begun to stir. The rain had finally stopped by the following Monday, leaving Seattle washed clean and glistening under a rare patch of pale sunlight. Victoria Monroe arrived at the boardroom on the 36th floor 15 minutes early. She carried no tablet, no assistant, no polished presentation deck. Just a single slim folder, and the drawing Ella had given her now folded carefully inside her jacket pocket, like a talisman. The 12 members of the board were already seated when she entered. They watched her with the practiced neutrality of people who had seen CEOs rise and fall. Harlan, the VP who had laughed loudest in the garage, sat at the far end, arms crossed. The chairman, a silver-haired man named Reynolds, who had handpicked Victoria 6 months earlier, gave her a small nod. She didn't sit. "I'm not here to pitch a product," she began. "I'm here to show you something real." She opened the folder and placed 3 sheets on the conference table, a technical summary of Aurora X, a timeline of Jake Callahan's career, and a photograph of the Mustang in the basement hood up the module glowing faintly. Silence followed. Harlan broke it first. "Is this the janitor's toy car again?" Victoria met his eyes. "This is a self-sustaining propulsion system that draws energy from the Earth's magnetic field, recycles it without loss, and produces 0 emissions. Range unlimited. Maintenance near 0. Lifespan 50 years minimum. It works. I've seen it run." A murmur rippled around the table. Reynolds leaned forward. "And the cost to scale initial prototype refinement under $50 million. Full production, perhaps $2 billion over a decade. But the real number is 0 fuel dependency. No oil, no batteries that degrade, no charging infrastructure, just clean motion." The room went still again. One of the younger board members, a woman named Chen who handled investor relations, spoke next. "Market fit." Victoria didn't hesitate. "Disaster relief, remote medical transport, developing nations without reliable grids, humanitarian aid organizations, and eventually personal vehicles for anyone who can't afford gas or electricity bills?" Harlan snorted. "We don't sell to nonprofits. We sell to consumers who upgrade every 3 years." "Exactly," Victoria said. "That's why this threatens everything we do." She let the words hang. Reynolds tapped the table. "You're suggesting we build something we can't monetize repeatedly. I'm suggesting we build something the world actually needs," Victoria replied. "Not something we can milk for quarterly earnings," Chen frowned. "Chen, the stock price will dip," Victoria finished. "Then it will climb when the world sees what we've done, or it will crash if we bury this and someone else finds it later." Harlan leaned back. "We could acquire the IP quietly. $25 million to the janitor. Non-disclosure, 10-year blackout clause. We shelve it until the timing's right or until we figure out how to meter it." Victoria looked at him steadily. "You want to buy it, to kill it. We want to control it," Harlan corrected. "That's what boards do." She turned to Reynolds. "I've already spoken to Callahan. He won't sell under those terms. Then we don't need him," another board member said. "We have the security footage. We can reverse engineer no Victoria cut in." "You don't. The core module is proprietary. The math is in his head, and in one encrypted drive he keeps off site. Force the issue and he walks. Or worse, he goes public on his own." The room considered that. Reynolds sighed. "What are you asking for, Victoria? A vote," she said. "Full development funding, open source the patents after 2 years of refinement, no blackout, no monopoly." "We give it to the world." Harlan laughed outright. "You're serious?" "I've never been more serious." The vote took 17 minutes. 10 against, 2 abstentions. Reynolds voted yes, then looked away. Victoria left the room without another word. That evening she drove to Jake's small house in West Seattle. The porch light was on. Ella's bicycle leaned against the railing. Jake opened the door before she knocked. "You're early," he said. "They voted no," Victoria told him. "They offered $25 million, 10 years silence." Jake didn't flinch. "And you?" "I told them no." He stepped aside. "Come in. Ella's making cookies." Inside smelled of vanilla and cinnamon. Ella stood on a stool at the kitchen counter, apron tied crookedly, chocolate chips scattered across the floor. She looked up and grinned. "Hi, want one?" "They're love cookies. Mom's recipe." Victoria smiled despite everything. "I'd love one." Ella handed her a warm, misshapen cookie. "Did the mean people say no?" Victoria glanced at Jake. He nodded slightly. "They did," Victoria said. "But that's not the end." Ella frowned. "What happens now?" Jake knelt beside her. "We tell the truth anyway." Ella thought about that. Then she ran to the living room and came back with a piece of paper, another drawing, this one of a crowd of people around the Mustang, all smiling. "I wrote a letter," she said. To everyone. Victoria took it. The handwriting was careful, a child's best effort. Dear world, my dad made a car that runs on love. It doesn't need gas or batteries, it just goes. My mom helped him think of it before she had to go to heaven. She said, time is the most important thing. This car gives people more time. Please don't take it away. Use it to help people who need it. Love, Ella Callahan, age 10. At the bottom, in smaller letters, P.S. It's okay if it's not fancy. It's real. Victoria's vision blurred. Jake watched her. She wants to send it to the news, to everyone. Victoria looked up. If we do this, they'll come after us. Lawsuits, media. They'll say I stole company secrets. They'll question your fitness as a parent. They'll try to take Ella. Jake's jaw tightened. I know, but you're still willing. He looked at his daughter, who was now carefully placing cookies on a cooling rack. I've hidden long enough, he said. Ella deserves to see her father stand up, and Sarah deserves to have her work live. Victoria nodded once. Then we go public, she said, on our terms. Ella looked between them. Does that mean the car gets to help people? Jake smiled, the first real unguarded smile Victoria had seen from him. Yes, sweetheart, he said. It does. Outside, the clouds parted just enough for a sliver of moonlight to touch the Mustang in the driveway. The next morning, Victoria scheduled an internal company event. No press, no fanfare, just the board, the executives, and one small stage. She knew what came next would cost her everything, but for the first time in years, the price felt right. The internal event was scheduled for a quiet Thursday evening in the main atrium after hours. No press, no streaming, just the board's senior executives and a handful of department heads who had been quietly summoned. The atrium lights were dimmed to half the banners from Green Tech Week still hanging like forgotten promises. A single podium stood on the low stage, flanked by two large screens. Victoria walked out alone. She wore the same white pantsuit from the day of the showcase, but without the sunglasses or the entourage. Her hair was down loose around her shoulders. In her hand, she carried nothing but Ella's, drawing the one with the green glowing car and the words, "The car that runs on love." She stepped to the podium. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. I'm not here to announce a new product, she began. I'm here to tell you a story. She looked out at the faces, some curious, some skeptical, a few already irritated. 10 years ago, a man named Jake Callahan resigned from NASA. He was one of the brightest minds in propulsion science, co-lead on the Aurora project, a self-sustaining energy system that could have changed everything. He left because his wife was dying. Ovarian cancer. Stage 4. He chose to spend her final months at her side instead of in a lab chasing funding. A few people shifted in their seats. He didn't stop working, Victoria continued. He just stopped letting the world watch. For the last decade, he has been here cleaning our floors, emptying our trash, staying invisible so he could finish what he and Sarah started in secret, in silence, for his daughter, for anyone who runs out of time too soon. She unfolded the drawing and held it up to the light. This is from Ella Callahan, 10 years old. She calls it the car that runs on love, because that's what her father built. A car that doesn't burn fuel, doesn't need batteries, doesn't pollute. It draws energy from the planet itself and gives it back clean, unlimited, eternal, like love should be. She set the drawing on the podium. I've seen it run. I felt it breathe. It's real. Harlan stood up. This is highly inappropriate. You're disclosing proprietary? It's not proprietary, Victoria cut in. It never was. Jake never assigned the IP to Skylink. He built it on his own time in our basement with parts he paid for himself. The only thing Skylink owns is the right to ignore it for another decade. Murmurs spread. Reynolds spoke next, voice low. What are you doing, Victoria? I'm choosing, she said. I'm choosing not to bury this. I'm choosing to give it away. Open source the patents. Donate the prototype designs to humanitarian organizations. Let it save lives instead of sitting in a vault waiting for the right quarterly report. The room erupted. Harlan slammed his hand on the table. You'll tank the stock, maybe, Victoria said. But I'd rather tank the stock than tank the future. She stepped away from the podium. I'm resigning effective immediately. She walked off the stage without looking back. The fallout came fast. By morning, internal leaks had reached the press. Headlines screamed, Skylink CEO exposes secret tech resigns in protest. Whistleblower or saboteur Victoria Monroe's final act. Stock plunged 17% in pre-market. The board convened an emergency session. By noon, her access was revoked. By evening, her name was scrubbed from the company website. She didn't fight it. 1 week later, the rain returned, harder this time, sheets of water drumming against the roof of Jake's small house. Victoria arrived in a rideshare-soaked no umbrella carrying a plain manila envelope. Jake opened the door. Ella peeked from behind him. Victoria held out the envelope. Transfer of my remaining Skylink shares to a community trust for clean energy initiatives. No strings. Jake took it without opening it. You lost everything, he said quietly. I lost a title, she corrected. I gained something else. Ella tugged at her sleeve. Come in. It's wet out there. Victoria stepped inside. The house smelled of coffee and fresh bread. Ella led her to the kitchen table where a plate of cookies waited. Victoria sat. For the first time in years, she didn't check her phone. Jake poured her a mug. What now? Victoria looked at Ella, then at Jake. I don't know. Maybe open a bookstore, maybe help with the trust, maybe just breathe. Ella climbed onto the chair beside her. You can stay for dinner, we have spaghetti, and Dad makes the best garlic bread. Victoria smiled small real. I'd like that. 1 year passed. Aurora X never became a commercial product. Instead, the designs were released freely to global health organizations. The first vehicles, modified ambulances, and mobile clinics rolled out in rural Kenya, in the mountains of Nepal, in underserved counties across the American Midwest. They carried medicine doctors' hope, no fuel costs, no breakdowns from bad roads, just quiet, steady motion. Jake refused every award, every interview. He stayed in West Seattle fixing things around the house, teaching Ella how to sketch engines that didn't need fuel. Victoria opened a small independent bookstore downtown. She stocked science books, poetry, children's stories about courage and kindness. Ella illustrated the window displays green cars with glowing hearts. They ate dinner together every Friday, spaghetti, garlic bread, cookies for dessert. No titles, no boardrooms, just 3 people who had chosen each other. One rainy evening, they piled into the Mustang. Jake turned the key. The engine breathed to life, smooth, familiar, eternal. Ella sat in the back, sketchbook open. Victoria beside Jake, hand resting lightly on his. As they drove through the wet streets, the city lights reflected off the hood like stars. No one spoke for a long time. Then Ella leaned forward. Dad, yes, sweetheart. Do you think Mom's proud? Jake glanced at Victoria. She met his eyes, soft, certain. I know she is, he said. Victoria reached back and squeezed Ella's hand. The Mustang glided on, carrying them forward, not on gasoline, not on electricity, but on something quieter, stronger, older than any engine. On love that refused to run out.